Hello everyone, Mege here. Today's video I've been working on for a while. A lot of people I've seen a lot of people talk about an eventual Warden rework. We are all hoping it will happen eventually, of course, since Warden at the moment, despite what some people might think, is not in a very good spot. Is very bidimensional hero and very easily shut down. It's kind of bad overall. So as I've read around on the competitive subreddit, a lot of people share their Warden rework post, or not just Warden, for other heroes as well, but today we're talking about Warden. He is my main, and that's where I feel like I can actually share something interesting with you guys. I'm gonna share my opinion on what I would like to see changed about Warden, and it's quite a long list, not too long, but I hope you will enjoy it and do let me know what you think of this. Now, let me say right away, I'm not claiming my idea is better than anyone else's. My rework post is as valid as all the others you find on Reddit. I just really want to share some ideas I've had for Warden I've thought about with both you guys and the developers, maybe even themselves. And just a little heads up, if you don't want to hear me talking for the whole video, I'm also making a big post in the competitive subreddit, For Honor subreddit. I'm gonna leave a link to it in the description below. So let's start right away by saying that the main aim of this rework is to make Shoulder Bash more powerful while at the same time less obnoxious to fight against. Now, we all know Shoulder Bash is a troublesome tool to balance around. As it is right now, it's too weak, it's beaten by rolls, it's beaten some back dodges as well sometimes. But when it's too strong, it feels oppressive and over-centralizing for the character, and it's thus very annoying for the opponent to fight against, even if it's not OP maybe. It's just very annoying, and I don't think that's what we want from a character in For Honor doing, especially the base character in the game. But before tackling Shoulder Bash itself, we at least gotta give something toward the neutral game, and the first change is going to be increasing side light speed from 600 milliseconds to 500 milliseconds. 600 milliseconds side lights are very slow, very easily parried, and basically useless in neutral unless you're reading a dodge or something. With this change, Warden is going to have 500 milliseconds light both from the top in his top light and the side light, giving him at least some sort of pressure alongside Shoulder Bash and zone attack in neutral. Now you might think, but Mege, this is going to make Warden just like Shinobi and PK, where he has 500 omnidirectional light attacks. But you have to keep in mind that Warden doesn't have Reflex Guard, so he can't really hide where his next attack is gonna come from, thus making overall 500 milliseconds light very manageable in neutral game. So expanding upon this change as a little quality of life change, I'm also increasing the speed of side lights in chains, so chain side lights, from 600 milliseconds to 500 milliseconds. There is no reason for chain side light to be slower, of course, than the neutral one. So now one might think that zone attack is kind of redundant since you already have side light 500 millisecond fast. So why use a zone attack which uses ultra stamina and is still 500 millisecond fast? Well, first of all, I think the devs initially thought that zone attack was supposed to be a minion clearing tool, primarily used for that and not to be used in lockdown combat. But anyway, I'm making some changes to zone attack to actually give it a more specific role, and namely, I'm improving the hitbox and tracking of the zone attack to better catch dodging opponents. Still doesn't beat rolls though. This should help Warden's poor mobility overall against those dodge happy assassins. They would beat back dodges, side dodges, and even dodge attacks. Now, I'm not sure how this could be achieved on a technical level. I guess you could give it the zone attack the undodgeable property, and by undodgeable property I mean the little blue effect you see on, for example, Berserker and Orochi's dodge attacks. At the same time, I think undodgeable property wouldn't really work on a zone attack. I think it would be the only zone with such a thing. I don't know how that would look. And I think other ways could be to just improve the hitbox, but it's kind of wonky already in 4v4, or make it ignore, for example, dodge immunity frames. Moving on, I really think Warden needs another way to go into Shoulder Bash. At the moment he can light attack, which can be blocked pretty easily even with the 500 speed on side lights, or it can dash or dodge. And dash and dodge is pretty good, you can be used to, dodge punish something, but at the same time, if you want to use it in neutral, if you want to apply pressure in neutral, your opponent can just see you dodging or dashing, and they know already that you're likely to go into Shoulder Bash, so they can just roll away already. So what I'm proposing is letting Warden enter Shoulder Bash by pressing the guard break button while he's in the wind up in the initial frames of a side heavy attack. Only the starting side heavies, not the chained ones. So for example, when you actually throw a side heavy which is 800 milliseconds long, so you throw the side heavy, you press the feint button, and then the Warden feints at 400 milliseconds before the attack connects. So in this case, halfway through the animation, at 400 milliseconds, the attack is feinted. So instead of pressing the feint button, you can also press the guard break button, so the shoulder bash button as well, and instead of going into a feint, Warden will soft feint into a shoulder bash. So for example, he does this and then he goes into shoulder bash or something like that. The shoulder bash from this option will still be 700 milliseconds and will still be beaten by a feint into guard break from the opponent. Speaking of heavy attacks, another little quality of life change I'm proposing is increasing the chain side heavy's damage from 25 to 30, just like the neutral side heavy's damage. I mean, they are the same speed, they should be the same damage as well, no reason for chain side heavies to do less damage than the neutral ones. Now finally moving on into new moves territory, starting with a new shoulder bash light follow-up called Blinding Strike. Blinding Strike is performed by pressing light attack after connecting a successful shoulder bash. Warden will quickly half-sword his blade, hit the opponent's head with his guard, stunning them shortly. Blinding Strike is a 300 milliseconds, 25 damage light attack, which is guaranteed to hit, so doesn't really matter, it can't be blocked or parried, and it cannot be changed into shoulder bash. Now I know this is a lot of info, I'm gonna try and explain it as best as I can what's my idea behind this. Blinding Strike comes out the first hit in a chain, so after hitting your opponent with it, so you connect shoulder bash, okay? You blind strike them, 25 damage, they are stunned for the same duration, for example, of Raider stunning tap, I don't know the exact timing, so they're stunned and it makes sense for you to chain from it. You can, since it's the first light in a chain, you can either chain another light or a heavy attack or a heavy into guard break, whatever, and since they're stunned, it won't be too bad to actually chain a 500 millisecond attack from it. Blinding Strike, however, takes the place as a light attack follow-up of Double Side Light. You cannot Double Side Light anymore after Shoulder Bash. This is to prevent Shoulder Bash from chaining into itself and creating the obnoxious vortex everyone hates. Now you might think, well, who cares, you can still Blinding Strike, chain into an heavy, soft feint the heavy into shoulder bash with the change we made earlier. However, remember that the soft feint from the side heavy can only happen if it's the first attack in a chain, not chained heavies, and it is for this very reason. So overall, the quickest way to get back into shoulder bash after a blinding strike will be to wait for the blinding strike animation to finish, then dashing forward and going into shoulder bash again. To discourage this sort of gameplay, blinding strike might have a hefty stamina cost, so you can just spam it and this combo over and over, or, and I would rather like this, make blinding strike recovery frames quite long if you don't chain anything into it. So you just go blinding strike and you gotta wait a second if you don't chain anything. This already happens with some attacks in the game, for example Warden Stoplight. Also, if 25 damage turns out to be too high, it can always be tuned later on. As of the live version, Warden gets 24 damage of double side light on shoulder bash and can be changed for more, chained for, another shoulder bash. I don't think it's gonna be too high honestly, but who knows. Alongside the light follow-up on shoulder bash, I'm also adding a heavy follow-up called Stab Charge. Stab Charge is performed by pressing the heavy attack button after connecting shoulder bash. Again, Warden will half-sword his blade, stab the opponent in the chest and push them forward a bit. It's a 15 damage heavy attack, 300 millisecond fast, it's guaranteed anyway, cannot be blocked or parried and cannot be changed into anything. However, it can wall splat and it can ledge. So basically, after shoulder bash you have two options. You either blinding strike, pam, 25 damage light attack, stuns them for a bit so maybe you can get more damage in, or you can go stab charge, 15 damage heavy attack, which pushes them forward, not very much actually, just it's not like Impaling Charge or Raider Stampede Charge, it's a little distance, but it can ledge, insta-kill, or it can wall splat, guaranteeing a top heavy for a total of 55 damage. This will make the Warden player play more aggressively, try and corner your opponents rather than playing passively, after all, he is a vanguard. It also adds a little choice in the shoulder bash game rather than always going for light attack. I know the scenarios in which one or the others are still pretty clear, but it is something to make it more interesting for the Warden player as well. Now I know both of these moves and another coming move I'm gonna talk about in a moment are gonna take quite the animation effort. Anyway, if you wanna get an idea of what the animations will look like, the blinding strike will sort of look like the hand and right execution first part, the Warden just stabs the eye out of the opponent, in this case it would be more like in the head to stun them, and the stab charge would kind of look like the stab charge, of course, that Apollyon uses in the campaign, if you remember, and would sort of work like Lawbringer's Impaling Riposte. And as far as new moves and animations go, the last one is the reworked Charged Bash named Warden's Valor. So charged shoulder bash, you know, where you hold down your shoulder bash, hyper armor, all of that is removed and replaced by a new move, this Warden's Valor. By holding down the shoulder bash button, Warden will charge an opponent with his sword up in the air and cut down on them once he is close enough. The charge starts at 700 milliseconds, just like the regular bash. Warden will then, you know, dash forward, run forward with his blade up, screaming, and once he gets close enough, he will throw down a 500 milliseconds unblockable heavy attack from the top with hyper armor dealing 50 damage. The attack can be feinted anytime during the charge, but not after the unblockable part comes out, and its main use is to beat rolls. Now, I know it's a 500 milliseconds, 50 damage heavy attack unblockable with hyper armor, and that seems like a lot of stuff, but it cannot be feinted, so if you see the attack coming out, just like Centurion's unblockable, which is very easy to deal with, you can just parry it. Also, during the charging part, while Warden cannot be guard broken, he cannot block anything at all, he has no guard present, so he also screams like a true man while charging, making this move not that good in ganks. I guess it can be interrupted by a stray attack before the unblockable with hyper armor actually comes out, and it can also, you know, be heard when someone maybe is using it behind you, you hear Warden, "Aah!" and you know he's coming. So you might still think 500 milliseconds is too quick, and of course if you're right in the face of your opponent, you cannot just trigger it, you can go into shoulder bash and then throw the attack right away, right? You have to charge for at least 500 more milliseconds. So the whole move, it's a minimum of 1000 milliseconds long, 500 are the charge, the other 500 are the actual attack with hyper armor, unblockable and whatever. Even with this length, the attack should still be able to beat some careless dodge attacking. For example, Kensei, which has a pretty slow dodge attack, should be able to be beat by this. I don't think Shaman and Gladiator would be though. To have a better idea of how this works, think about the new Orochi's Storm Rush, okay? So Orochi starts Storm Rush, he starts dashing, this is the charging part of Warden, and once he is close enough, he actually throws out the attack, so the distance can vary, you know? It's the same with Warden, he charges for a part, then when he's close enough, he actually throws out the attack. Also, as a little funny note, Warden basically did something like this in the very first For Honor trailer, even though the Orochi actually blocked that one. Now Warden's shoulder bash has finally a way to beat rolls, but there is still one little change, but important change, needed. The guard break cancel from shoulder bash has increased tracking, beating all dodges. This final change is to make the whole mix-up true and not having some cheeky back dodges beating all options like it's happening right now. Alright, that's it for the bulk of the video. As some final considerations, I have some points I want to highlight. First, if Warden reads a dodge correctly and cancel into guard break, so you shoulder bash, you know the opponent is gonna dodge, you guard break them, normally you go for a side heavy for the confirmed 30 damage. However, Warden can sacrifice 6 damage instead of 30, going for a double side light, 24 damage, and chain another shoulder bash. This is the only way to actually chain multiple shoulder bashes. However, it's stamina intensive and does trade guaranteed damage for potentially more damage, which I think is a fine and interesting mechanic. The new Warden's Valor, the Warwery Charge, tracks and hits Shinobi's backflip, making them match up at least a little easier. With all of these changes, I feel like the live out of stamina max punish for Warden, side heavy into top heavy, might be a little too much, and it's also buggy as hell, so I would just remove it altogether and make the new max punish top light into top heavy for 55 damage. Even with these changes, Warden still struggles against characters with fast attacks, preventing him from going into shoulder bash at all. The side heavy shoulder bash soft feint should help him a bit, since the opponent cannot just react to his dodges. Of course, option selecting is still a problem, but that's honestly a larger issue in itself. And last but not least, all of these changes might detract from Warden's basic theme. He's the base hero, he should be the easier hero with the less options overall, I feel. I don't know, I honestly would drop that moniker altogether, but it's something to consider. Alright, that concludes this rework video. Please do let me know what you think of this, even if it's negative feedback. Any feedback is welcome. You can say, Mege, this is wonderful, I like your idea. You can tell me, Mege, what the fuck are you thinking? 500 milliseconds unblockable, hyper armored, 50 damage attack is way too much. That's fine, we can talk about this, we can discuss this. And that's the interesting part and what I'm really looking forward to see in the comments, both here and on the Reddit post. I will see you all next video, gonna try and reply to as many comments as I can, and I hope you have a good day.